In 1983, Gene Simmons first crossed paths with Shannon Tweed at the Playboy Mansion. Although it would take him nearly 3 decades to finally marry her, their 2011 wedding wasn't really about romance. Instead, it served as a shield to cover up a scandal that threatened to tear his entire family apart. Recently uncovered footage from their reality show has revealed private conversations that were never meant for public eyes. Alongside that, his son found himself in the middle of a plagiarism scandal, and fresh legal filings from 2025 included serious accusations involving female employees. Simmons, who once bragged that he had slept with 4,800 women, was suddenly confronted with consequences that went far beyond his infamous rockstar image. Before he was Gene Simmons, he was known as Chaim Witz, born on August 25, 1949, in Haifa, Israel. His mother, Flora Klein, had just survived unimaginable horrors. Born in Hungary in 1925, she had barely escaped the Nazi concentration camps alive. His father, Yehiel Witz, had also fled Hungary, marrying Flora in 1946 before the couple moved to Israel in 1947, right before the birth of the new state. Their past was filled with scars, and that darkness lingered in ways that shaped everything to come. By the time Chaim turned 6 in 1955, things became even harder. His parents' marriage collapsed, mostly because of crushing poverty. His father stayed behind in Israel, while his mother was left to raise him alone in Mount Carmel. Flora worked tirelessly in factories, sewing buttons day after day just to keep food on the table. Many nights, dinner consisted of nothing more than bread and milk. At 7 years old, Chaim was already trying to contribute. With a friend, he picked wild fruit and sold it by the roadside. He understood hardship firsthand. He fashioned his first winter coat out of an army blanket because he had no other option. While the cold bit deep, it was better than nothing. Often, his mother worked late into the night, leaving him to cry himself to sleep in an empty house. School offered no refuge. Other children bullied him relentlessly for being different. Even though his mother had escaped Europe's horrors, echoes of that same hate followed him into the classroom. Yet something else entered his life at the same time: American comic books. Titles like Spider-Man and Superman became his escape. He couldn't yet read English, but he struggled through anyway, determined to understand the heroes that fascinated him. By 7, he already spoke Hebrew, Hungarian, and Turkish. Now, driven by comics, he was secretly teaching himself English too. In a world still scarred by war, where food was scarce and hope was fragile, those stories gave him something to cling to. Though his mother rarely spoke about her experiences, Chaim began to understand the weight she carried. By 1957, he saw her suffering more clearly. At just 14 years old, Flora had been forced by Nazis into labor camps, made to pick potatoes under armed guard. She wore clothes marked with crosses and was shuttled from one camp to another, losing relatives one by one. She didn't need to explain it in words. Her silence, her overprotectiveness, and her sudden tears told him everything. That left its mark on Chaim, instilling in him a deep determination to never appear weak and to never let anyone see him break. That same year, in 1957, Flora made a life-changing decision. With little more than courage, she and 8-year-old Chaim left Israel for the United States. They landed in Queens, New York, with no money, no English, and no family waiting to help. His father stayed behind, remarried, and built a new life, one Chaim would never be part of. Starting over, he adopted a new name, Eugene Klein. Everyday American things like flush toilets and TV dinners amazed him. But adjusting was far from easy. Flora worked grueling hours in Brooklyn factories, sometimes as many as 15 hours a day, leaving Gene in the care of babysitters and forcing him to figure out the new world on his own. At first, he attended a Jewish school, but he didn't fit in. Switching to public school, he still struggled to belong. He eventually graduated from Newtown High School in 1967. Early on, kids mocked his accent, making him feel like an outsider everywhere. Instead of crumbling, he pushed back by working harder. He sold cactuses door to door, picked fruit again like he had in Israel, and forced himself to master English faster through television and comic books. By 1959, at just 9 years old, he legally changed his name again, this time to Gene Klein, choosing Gene after cowboy actors like Gene Autry. He was committed to being American now, even if he and his mother still lived in a cramped apartment with relatives. Gene developed an obsession with television, especially The Ed Sullivan Show. Everything changed on February 9, 1964, when the Beatles performed on that stage. Watching them lit a fire inside him. He wanted that life, the stage, the music, the fame. Still, deep inside, he felt like the boy who came from nothing. To fit in, he even mimicked British accents like the Beatles, which made girls notice him. Though awkward and uncertain, he was slowly developing the charm that would later define him. Through the 1960s, Gene took any job he could find. He worked in butcher shops cutting meat, helped in delis, and earned just $1.25 an hour. Every cent mattered. Growing up in poverty had trained him to value every dollar. He steered clear of alcohol, even at parties, noticing how older guys got sloppy while he stayed sharp. That discipline gave him an edge with women, something he openly admitted later. Around this time, he picked up a guitar and became obsessed. After seeing the Beatles on TV, he practiced constantly, forming small bands and experimenting with music while still in school. In 1968, Gene enrolled in Sullivan County Community College, studying education. By 1970, he had earned an associate degree and even taught 6th grade in Spanish Harlem for $75 a week. But teaching didn't satisfy him. His heart belonged to music. Teaming up with Paul Stanley, he formed a band called Rainbow, which later became Wicked Lester in 1970. By night they played clubs, by day they worked other jobs. Gene even worked at a fashion magazine and did translation gigs, using Hungarian, Turkish, and Spanish he had picked up from babysitters and neighbors. Still, every free moment was devoted to music. Then came the story that shocked even his biggest fans. Gene revealed that he lost his virginity at nearly 14 years old in 1963. At the time, he was delivering newspapers. One cold winter evening, just before Christmas, he knocked on a customer's door. A married woman answered, weeping and wearing only a thin nightgown. What happened next, Gene later described in graphic detail in his autobiography. That encounter marked not just the beginning of his sex life but the start of a pattern that would follow him through fame. By 1970, Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley joined forces with Steve Coronel, Brooke Ostrander, and Tony Zarella to form Wicked Lester. Their sound was an unusual fusion of folk and rock, born from New York City's experimental music scene. On October 15, 1972, they recorded a full album at Electric Lady Studios, which had been built by Jimi Hendrix. Epic Records invested heavily in the project, but their A&R director, Don Ellis, despised it. He called the music too messy, too strange for radio, and shelved it indefinitely.